Today's question comes from Kinsey in Utah. My husband and I are recently married and debt-free. Our household income is a bit over $100K. We recognize that we've been blessed to be a blessing to others, so we give pretty substantially out of our income. We're very committed to our church and to giving resources to mission efforts around the world. As we talk about buying a house in the next few years, we find it difficult to plan and save when our heart is to give out of our abundance. How do we find a good balance of giving generously and planning for our future? It's a great question, Kinsey.
What a great heart.
I was about to say, you sound amazing. Well, there's kind of this way of looking at giving in two buckets. I think there's a little bit more of kind of the emotional side, right? You hear of something, you're at something, someone mentions some amazing nonprofit or something, and you think, okay, I just want to write a check. I just want to give. I want to give right there in the moment. And then there's that spontaneous, factor. Then there's more of the planned giving where you say, okay, I'm going to really map out and look at the places that I give, research them, making sure that they are legitimate, which I'm sure you guys have done with your church and the efforts that you're giving to with missions around the world. But you're strategic on the amount too, that you say, okay, here's our budget and here's what we're going to give to. So neither one necessarily is right or wrong. I think that leaning toward that planned giving though, Kinsey, is what I would encourage you to do, to say, hey, sit down and actually put numbers to what's going on. Because if you are budgeting and you guys are debt free, so you're going to be able to have more margin to give, which is amazing. And to say, okay, we want to give, I don't care what it is, 20, 25%, 10%, 12%, whatever you guys feel like, okay, this is a good amount for us to give, and plan that, and then say, okay, out of that and out of our budget, how much do we have to save for a down payment on a home? And then just map it out over the next couple of years and see where that gets you, because both are great. Saving up for a down payment on a home is awesome, and giving generously is amazing, but you guys need to put a little bit more detailed planning around it so that you can make both happen. Instead of kind of just, it sounds a little bit on a whim, some of your giving. I would be a little bit more detailed with it.
But I want to reframe, right now in your mind, I want to reframe your paradigm on this, Kinsey, because right now in your mind, the way you described this, it's as if buying a house feels selfish and counterproductive because that money could be used for generosity. And it feels like these two things are competing with each other. And I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's real. What's real is buying a house will cause you to become wealthier than renting. If you rent your entire life, you're going to have less money than if you buy a house, because rent goes up every year. When you buy a house, the house goes up and it becomes an asset, and you've stabilized and locked in your housing cost. It's not going up every year, other than taxes and insurance might go up. But I mean, the cost of the biggest cost you have is your residence, where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
And so if you want to give more, the best way to give more is to build more wealth. And stabilizing your housing cost is going to cause you to build more wealth. So they're not working against each other long term. They might be this month, or they might be over a year while you're trying to get into the house and it's more expensive than where you are now. It might be right then, but over the course of 40 years or 30 years, owning a house is going to cause you to be able to be more generous. And so let's not frame this that these two things are competing. But if you pan back with a long enough lens on this, you will see that buying a house is going to cause you to be able to be more generous. I'll give you an example, okay? I don't have a house payment. Rachel doesn't have a house payment. We can be more generous than somebody that has rent. It's pretty simple. So, you just don't have that big, hairy payment that most people have got.
Yep.
It's a couple $1,000s in most people's budget a month, or $1,500 a month, or whatever it is in most people's budget that we don't have. And so that's money we've got that's free to invest or to give.
Yes.
And
there's nothing unholy about planning either.
Right.
Because there's a little bit too.
The mind of man plans his ways, and the Lord directs his steps.
Yep.
Well, Scripture says that.
So there's a level of being a good steward in this too, Kinsey, of you guys sitting down and actually planning what's happening.
Yeah, and We plan our impulses.
Yeah.
I mean, we plan a line item in the Ramsey Family Foundation budget annually to do some giving that we don't know what it is yet.
Yep.
And so we planned, and then we've got certain ministries and things that we are supporting that we very definitely lay down there. But we leave some margin in there for things that are going to come our way that we don't know yet.
Yes.
And so that's planning your impulse. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's very true. It's what we do. Good stuff.